Welcome, everyone. We are joined by a very special guest on another edition of the Flow Show. We got Patrick Leonard over in the UK. Pads, how's it going?
Good, bro. Good, bro. Good to be here. I know it's a morning for you, but it's also almost the morning for me. Like I'm on probably the same schedule as you are. Just like 5 hours ahead. So I probably wake up at the same time. Like you probably wake up, get online at the same time. Just you're like 5 hours behind me or whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. I will say this is the earliest podcast I've done. I'm happy to do it. You're making a joke about 78th, the most important podcast. It doesn't work like that. I think it goes better. The further along, the better, and more energy and more refined they get. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming on. And I guess a lot of people in poker are gonna know who you are, but give a little background on, I guess, your upbringing, your journey, and what got you into poker, and then we'll go from there. Just some people may not be as familiar with you if they're not into poker, but if you are in poker, you know who you are. But give us a background.
Yeah, so I'm from Newcastle, which is in the north of England. Started playing poker when I was like 16, 17, with my friends who are all better than me. I'm very competitive. I hate to lose, and I used to lose every week. So I just learned how to beat my friends in a home game, and then I was like, okay, I never really like to settle. I used to play football, and I would never like to settle at the same level. I'd always want to go like a slightly level ahead. So once I could beat my friends, I wanted to go to kind of the next stage, which was going to be like the local casino. I went to the local casino and just got smoked and just had no chance. So I learned how to beat the guys in the local casino. And then once I could beat these guys who didn't really study, or they were just like old men, whatever, it was just like a hobby for them rather than like a job or anything. I went to online poker. It was like a new challenge. I lost, every time I played. And yeah, I learned how to start to win online. Then I would always go to kind of the next steps. I would go to like a UK championship, like a 500 pound buy-in, and I would do terrible and start to learn how to get better there. Then as things went on, I would go to like EPTs. I think I didn't cash in my first 20 EPTs. Then I learned how to kind
First
of
20, you didn't cash in one.
yeah, I think it was something like 20. Yeah, it was a brutal run. Then I'd go to like Vegas. I didn't cash in. I think probably 30 tournaments in a row in Vegas. Then learned how to do that. Then yeah, online, the higher stakes would lose first, then get better, etc., etc. So always poker started from the bottom and basically always went up a tier every 6 months or every year whenever kind of I got to the top of the tier I was at, and always failed first, and then always just kind of put in the time to kind of learn how not to fail. Because it doesn't matter if I'm playing, against my mom at chess or my dad at Monopoly or my girlfriend at tennis, whatever it may be. I just hate to lose. Yeah, so all of these different tiers of poker, I just couldn't give up. I wanted to just get to the next tier. Not really from a financial point of view or anything, just it was like a challenge. It was like a game. You play like I always used to play like Crash Bandicoots and these kind of like computer
Yeah.
games, and you'd get like addicted to the game, right? And the addiction was always to like get to the next level, like beat the next end boss, and that's kind of how poker always was to me. It was just a game, like it was just a hobby, and it was lucky that you could monetize that hobby. A lot of my friends are amazing at things like piano, or they're amazing at, let's say, Call of Duty or whatever it may be. And I'm just lucky that my hobby is a one where you can make decent money. Whereas, my friends who play the piano or play X, Y, or Z, unfortunately for them, they are just as good at that as I am at poker. But it's just I'm just lucky that poker is a money game, essentially. So,
And
so
and
that's
what gravitated you toward that? Because also I played a lot of board games, video games, always like games. Same thing. It's like there was a famous commercial in the U.S. It was a Sprite commercial, and the guys were playing video games, and the guy like twists the cap, and then the guys are winning the video game, and he's like, what'd you win? It's like, what do you win in a video game? Nowadays there's esports, there's all kinds of stuff going on, but back then it was like, you're not winning anything playing a video game. You could learn some skills and cognizant reflexes and just all different things that are decent with games, but you couldn't actually win money. Now, was that the allure? Was that why poker? Like, why do you think you versus your friends got into poker? What was the key moment for you to say, you know what, I'm going to go forward and dive into this this game? Like what made you actually go for it?
So the education system in the UK is you go to like school with your friends when you're like 5 years old till say 16 years old, and then when you're
Okay.
16 you choose like a specialist area which you want to go into. You can either stay at school for 2 years, you can go to learn plumbing, you can go to learn whatever you want to learn. And basically when I was 16, I left school and went to do like a sports kind of degree. Like I was playing football and or soccer, as you would say.
Yeah,
And
let me interrupt you. You're at a high level. I've seen it. We got a clip of you from the World Cup of Vegas with all the teams, which is fun. We compete every year. Where were you playing at? Like you were actually almost pro, or were you in the youth system? What was your soccer or football trajectory at that time? What was going on then?
yes, I was always decent. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say I was like naturally good or anything like this. Like I don't have like a athlete's physique or anything like this. But my parents were very very supportive. They would like my friends' parents would take them once a week to play football or like twice a week to play football, which is like normal standard like what most parents do with their kids. But
Yeah.
my parents would drive me around from 6 years old until like 18, 7 times a week. I would play football basically every day.
Wow.
And then when I got to like 14, I went to a running. I didn't like school. I never studied. I never like listened in class. And when I was 14, there was a chance to take an afternoon off school to be go to a running competition. And my football coach said, "Oh, you run a lot in the games. Like, do you want to come and run?" And I was like, "Oh, if I can get out like science or like art, then sure." So I went to this running tournament. It was like every kid in like the whole of the northeast, which is like a huge area. Like England has northeast, northwest, southwest, southeast, London kind of thing. So like a quarter of the country, let's say, or like a fifth of the country. And I was expected, just to like come not last, but probably bottom half or whatever. And
Right.
somehow I came second in this race, and I was like, I had no like, I had no right to come second. These guys' legs are like twice as long as mine or whatever, and that kind
Yeah.
of just came because my parents basically not made me play sport, but encouraged me to play sport every day from like 6 to like 15 or 16, whatever it may be. Then I had to decide whether I wanted to be a runner or a footballer. I was good at football, but I was probably better at running. Even though I'd never ran before or never went to like a coaching or anything like this, I was kind of just more naturally good at running than football, I would say. I was kind of
Right.
coached to be a good footballer, but I was naturally good to be a runner. So then when I got to like 16, when you start having like clubs and stuff like this and like amateur football, like where you can start getting paid for money, um, I basically combined the two. Yeah, there's this free kick in show now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is a little magic there from the UK and the team and the Summer World Cup of Vegas. Yeah, so yeah, I saw that a little flash of brilliance there, and that's awesome. So you were into the sports. Your parents were very supportive, and they sort of got you. They were pushing you or helping you, supporting you. Was that the case with poker? How did that conversation go when you
So
said I'm gonna?
when I was 16, I basically left all my friends at school and went to try to take like full-time sport, whether that was going to be a full-time football player, whether that was to be a full-time coach or manager, whether that was to be a full-time runner. My goal at 16 was basically leave school, leave the education system, or build my education system around sports. So I was learning like sports science, sports nutrition, sports exercise. I would be running, like 10, 15 kilometers every day, like playing football every day. So like my whole life was around sports. But obviously my friends, I still wanted to see my friends after school and stuff, right? So at that time, they were like they were doing like economics or whatever else, and in between classes they would be, instead of playing sport, they would be kind of playing poker together at school. And they were starting to really, I guess this was around about the time of the moneymaker win. They were starting to like on a Friday night, instead of going drinking or going to cause trouble, they would play poker. And I wasn't really interested in it at all. Like I was just really into sport at the time. But they were like, "Oh, come on, let's hang out on Friday night or Saturday night." And I was like, "Well, I'll come along and just like donate £10 or £5."
Right.
and just to see my friends. It was almost like an admission charge, just to catch up and stay with my friends and not like just fall out of the kind of social circle, let's say.
So you
But I
weren't when you were playing with them though, you weren't just like instantly. It wasn't like natural where you were winning or doing very well in the first bit. You didn't just come in and just pick it up and were it was literally just social fun, whatever. You weren't really trying to figure it out. Or were the second you sat down live, was it like, all right, this is amazing. Like I see there's a skill, there's an edge potentially, there's work that
yeah,
can be done, or it didn't cross your mind at that point?
I mean, I didn't really. They played maybe like they were playing every day for like hours, and I hadn't played at all for like a month. And they were like, "Oh, we played this poker game. Like, you should come and play." So they'd maybe played like 60 times before I played once. So the first time I played, I got knocked out on the first time, and just like went home. I was like, "This is not for me." But as they kept basically playing every Friday, I was like almost forced to go back because I wanted to keep seeing my friends. I was like, well, if I'm gonna play, I may as well try to get a little bit better, you know. So I started slowly like enjoying things that they like spoke about and laughed about. So like they would like if someone raised on the button, they would basically start. Or if someone got the button past them, like they were in the small blind and moved to the button, they would start like to they would like hold the button up and be like, oh, I've got the button now, and I was like, what does that even mean, you know? And
Right.
if maybe like an A side board came out, they'd be like, oh, you know, and I'd be like, well, what's so special about like an A side board? So I started slowly getting intrigued by their like enthusiasm about like small parts of the game. Like to me, I thought we were just gambling, like, you know, we put the money in, whoever wins wins. But as they started to um, slowly like express interest at these like small nuances of the game, I was like, oh wow, like maybe there is something about it. In football, I was always, you know, like kind of a captain and like the strategist in the game. I wasn't the guy, you know, like crunching tackles or winning headers or like in the game for my physique. It was more about kind of, you know, the strategical part. How I was brought into football or soccer when I was like 6, so I understood the game from like an early age. So like I always enjoyed, you know, like how to do like X, Y, Z, like counter pressing or how to press as a team or how to build up from the back, whatever it may be. Like most people in England get their coaching badges when they're like 40 or 50. I started getting them when I was like 16, 17, you know. It's like I always had a big interest in terms of strategy behind things. As soon as my friends started telling me there was a strategy behind poker, I was like, really? I was like, oh, well, that's interesting because I'm going to make sure that I understand that strategy better than you because they were all like not laughing at me, but like they knew that I was like the worst player, and that was to me was I was always, you know, when we played in school and stuff, I was always like the better player at football. I hadn't really been used to being like the one everyone laughed at or the one people would pick last or anything like this, you know. So I was like not taking it offended, but I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that if we're going to play this, I'm going to be competitive at least, you know. And
I,
yeah, then
I want to interrupt you about because I find it very interesting. I do see similarities, and I guess you could apply. I really think poker is one of those games you can apply to anything, sports, life, lessons, little bits and bobs. But what for you, you know, because I played soccer through college. I'm very familiar with the game, and also similar position, similar sort of the way you're describing it. You know, I wasn't same type of role in how I played and my style. How would you say soccer, football, if you will, how does that apply to poker? What sort of similarities or strategy, sort of mindset do you think that you can apply within poker and soccer? How do they sort of translate together?
sure, there's a lot. So like you know there's parts of poker where you have to really attack. So you know when you have let's say you're playing on a football pitch where the pitch is like downhill or like it's not flat. You know, if you're kicking downhill, you attack. You know, and most amateur football is not played on perfect pitches. It's played on bad pitches. So if you're kicking kind of downhill, or if you have 11 men against 10, then you attack, and that's kind of like when you're playing on the button or the cutoff. If you kind of have your back against the wall, you have more of a defensive strategy. Like if you're playing from the big blind, it's more, you know, trying to just lose the least. And when you're playing football and you're trying to defend, it's about not trying to score, it's trying to not concede, you know. But then sometimes maybe you're losing and things are going really bad and you have to go like all in and really go for it. That's like if you have 5 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go in the game, you have to really, you know, go throw everything trying to accumulate goals, right? And it's the same as poker. If you go to a short stack, you have to take risks, you know. So it's kind of like weighing up risk and reward, when to attack, when to defend, weighing up like yeah, like risk and reward is is
That's
definitely a big thing.
very
There.
interesting. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. Some of some of those last bits you said, that's it. I never really thought of it exactly like that. That's interesting. Do you find yourself in a tournament with because I know you're a big fan of football. Do you like visualize when you have a certain stack? You're like thinking of games or comebacks, or like do you apply, and do you find yourself equating situations, or how do you I've never heard it like that. I actually really like that. Is that something that
I think
I've
the
actually
opposite
never heard that?
almost. I think almost the opposite. When I'm watching football, I try to apply like poker strategy to the football strategy. So like, for example, in the Premier League now, because of coronavirus, you're allowed 5 substitutions. So like straight away when something new happens, I'm thinking like imagine you play poker, like short deck comes out, you try to think, okay, how do I adjust the
Mm.
short deck? So when like 5 subs come out, straight away I'm thinking, how do you adjust the 5 substitutions? Because the Premier League managers right now, they're all bringing the players on at the same time as what they did before, like 70th minute, 80th minute, 60th minute. Whereas straight away I was thinking, well, surely the best exploit is like get your striker or get your midfielder to like go flat out for the first 45 minutes, not conserve any energy, then make an earlier substitution. Maybe make a substitution after 30 minutes, like tell your players to really go for it, try to get a lead, and then you can control the game. So I was thinking about how managers may have approached it, but managers basically didn't really do too much different. So like I was thinking, am I just really far off, or is like football coaches now play very differently to how they did 20 years ago. Everything always evolves. And I think kind of post coronavirus, the evolution of these new rules haven't really been as quick. Whereas in poker, you have to adapt or like evolve instantly. Whereas I think in football or in soccer, it's actually taken like longer than I would have imagined it to take. So I don't really think of football when I play poker, but when I watch football, I think of poker a lot about how I approach poker in those ways, or like exploitative versus
Right.
like theoretical. Like okay, like what is the theoretical approach for Liverpool to play, and then if they're playing a bad team, how are they then trying to um, exploit it basically?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure, a lot of similarities. I agree. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you have a new set of parameters, new set of rules, it's got to be a little different. There's got to be a way to do better. You're giving, it does matter in terms of energy, and I guess different teams are going to want to do different things with that. But for sure, it shouldn't be the same. It shouldn't be the exact same
yeah.
calibration. All right. Well, a lot. I think you're one of my first guests that plays poker, at least, that does not have their first Hendon Mob result. I think we're like at 97% made a final table on their first ever cash. So I'd like to get some hooked. So, cheers for sticking in the game. I think there's something to that people hit that first final table and they're just like, all right, this is the best thing. I'm going to play poker. You got a 47th, maybe a little deeper field than what a lot more players. This was a 550. Do you remember this first tournament? Do you remember, was this your first ever live tournament, or had you played live tournament before and got knocked out? Do you remember that Hendon Mob?
Yeah, so at this time I was living in Spain, working as a poker consultant. So like the stuff I do for PartyPoker now, working with Rob and the guys, I was basically doing this as a job for like Stars, Full Tilt, Party, or iPoker, etc. And in our company, we used to have like VIPs, like guys who would play for and like we were like an affiliate, and they would rake for the company. And basically, the guy who was the highest raker was always Russian, and he won a World Series of Poker package, but he didn't have a visa to go because he was from Russia and there was some visa issue. And William Hill at the time, they were like, "Oh well, do you want to send 2 of your staff members? We'll just give the package to the staff members." Obviously, it should have went down to like the third place, whatever, but they just give it to me and another VIP guy. So we went to Vegas, and we went to Vegas for like a week and played there. Yeah, I mean, I never played tournaments. I was always playing cash games. So this was the first. I think I went to Vegas and played 4 tournaments and or 3 tournaments, whatever. And I'd never played tournaments. I was just a cash game player. So.
And how was that first trip to Vegas? Was that your first trip to Vegas, or your first time playing poker in
First
Vegas?
time I was in America. I was only 21, I guess, at the time. It was 2011, so
Yeah.
I'm 31 now. So I was like just turned 21 or like 22 or whatever. So yeah.
Well, you're the number 2 all time, I believe, or number 2. No, you're the number 2 current ranked poker online. I don't know if you're number 2. Do you know where you, in terms of online earnings? I guess, do you know what you're up there? But you're number 2 currently. you've been as high as number 1. I mean, you're number 2 at the moment. Explain what that means a bit for those that don't know. Like, how does that work? It's sort of like, I guess, the equivalent in the U.S. with the BCS, right? There's a rankings, there's a formula, just like the Hendon Mob ranks for live events, for online, based on buy-in, results, and all that. So, could you talk a little bit about what that means and where you're at now and how that works with the leaderboard?
Yeah, so it's not as prestigious anymore as it used to be. It used to be very, very prestigious when I was really going for it hard in, let's say, 2014, 2015, I mean, even today, I'm still trying to go hard at it. And I think I've always been, in the top 10, maybe like dropped down to like 15th or something once or twice when I went away for a couple of months. But for me, success in poker isn't necessarily being like number 1 or number 2 or number 3. It's kind of like, if I could stay in the top 10 for like 10 years or 5 years or 7 years, to me, even if I was like 8th for like 10 years, to me, that's more success than being like first once or second once. Like, I really wanted to get first one time, like at the very start, because I wanted to like show my parents and my friends that I wasn't like a degenerate gambler or whatever, and that like this was like a real thing that I was doing and I was working hard. Because when I was really going for it at the start, I didn't have money or anything. I was just in my office studying, like 50, 60 hours a week, playing every day. So like, my parents or friends didn't see, I wasn't rich from poker or anything, and they just knew I was playing poker but not really understanding what was going on. So to tell people that, okay, I've made number 1 in the world, that was like a big milestone to get to. Then after I got to number 1, my next goal was kind of like longevity. Like, success in poker to me is longevity, so like being around for a long time. And
Yeah.
I basically looked at all the Pocket Fives winners for the 5 years before that I got number 1, and I realized that they'd all left poker or become losers or kind of just quit or moved on to something else. But I knew that I loved poker and I wanted to stay around, and my goal was to have longevity in poker, and I wanted to make sure that I was still in the Pocket Fives rankings in 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it may be. So yeah, I basically I'm number 2 in the world now, but it's not based on profit alone. There's some guys who may not have like certain screen names tracked or whatever. Um, I got a lot of my points also from a big score on GG, which is profit. So like, for me, kind of my points versus profit will actually like stand out quite well. But I could definitely have got to number 5 by being a losing player. So like, I could have just played every day, cashed a lot, and not profited much, and still being in like the top 10, top 20.
Yeah, I want to ask you on that, but before, just thinking on that, what do you feel in poker with that? Because there's been thoughts tossed around, and because it is a little bit funny on the Hendon Mob, especially for the live. There's always 25K nows, 50Ks, 100Ks. There's £1 million. So people that could have like 50, 20, 30 million in earnings may not even be profitable or whatnot. Yeah. What do you believe there should be something, or is there a reason why it doesn't do that? But like, it would seems like it would make sense to show. I see reasons why both are done or wouldn't be done, but what do you think on that? Like, to show your actual profit, or I guess that would be complicated for online and with taxes and this, and then people are re-entering and all these different. It'd be complicated to keep track, I guess, or understand that. But what do you think on that? Because it would be curious to see both live and online what actual ROI, like what the real winnings and losses are, because that, like, to your point, it doesn't necessarily mean you're the most winning player. You could just play everything, So
yeah. But also, I also think just because you have the most profit doesn't mean you're also the best player. So like, sure. If someone's gone from, let's say a guy's gone from playing $1 tournaments to playing £1 million tournaments where people will stake him, the people who stake him have to really understand poker well to put him into this tournament. And then let's say he loses that £1 million tournament. Then let's say there's somebody else who just gets rich, plays a £1 million tournament and cashes for, say, 5 million. I don't think the guy who cashed for 5 million is necessarily better off or a better player than the guy who didn't cash, who'd worked his way all the way from $1 to $1 million buy-ins. Like, there's a lot of success about playing these tournaments because you have to get yourself in these tournaments one way or another. How well you run over like a 20 game sample of $1 million tournaments is like, it's not down to you. Like, you can't dictate that you're going to win your ace kings versus jacks or whatever it may be, but if you can get yourself into the position to play these tournaments, I think that's what shows the hard work, and that's what shows your achievement and your success, you know. So like, although I do think profit's obviously important, and like I think your overall profit will always be dictated based on how well you run at your higher stake games. So like, let's say I play 12 months over the next 1 year, and let's say I absolutely demolish $100 buy-ins and $200 buy-ins and 530 buy-ins. Let's say I don't cash the big game for 1 year. Let's say I don't cash any WPT 10Ks. Let's say I play on stars and don't cash any 5Ks or 2Ks that they have. Like, let's say I cash some, but like I run very badly. Even though like I've really crushed poker that year, I've just ran poor at like at the high games. So I think it's a little bit dicey about like how poker should be kind of uh, seen as being
Calibrated.
successful or not successful. I think if you're in the highest games, and people are staking you for them, or you've got yourself in a position to play them yourself, I think that's a big sign of success. I think if you win at the highest games, I don't think that's necessarily a sign of success, you know?
Talk to me a bit about mindset and how that works. Let's take a Sunday now across, PartyPoker, obviously unbelievable schedule. They got the World Poker Tour, 100 million guarantee already underway. How do you deal with that? Because it's kind of crazy. Give me a Sunday, typical Sunday. What's your minimum buy-in and your maximum buy-in on a Sunday for a tournament entry?
So I change my mind on a lot of things. Basically, I feel a lot that it's very difficult to play 5 days a week. Let's say you want to be a full-time tournament player, like you don't have like sponsorships or whatever. Let's say you want to play tournaments full-time and study a lot and really dedicate yourself to be a tournament professional. It's very difficult to play buy-ins which are 10 times higher than your average buy-in, because your whole week will depend on that buy-in. So like, let's say I win. Let's say someone wins like 250K a year playing tournaments, right? Like that's a really good return. Like you're going to be like one of the best players if you're making 250K a year playing online tournaments. It's not easy to do, you know. So like that means you make $5,000 a week. So let's say you work really hard Monday to Friday and you make that $5,000. Then let's say on Sunday you play the big game twice and you don't cash, and now you're down $5,000, right? So the next week it's really hard to register the $55 tournament on a Monday or the 109 tournament on a Wednesday, because a lot of your success just comes down to how well you run in these higher buy-ins. So like I genuinely believe for like 99% of people, they should sacrifice the tournament, which is the most expensive they play every week, because it's going to have such a big impact on their mental game for the week, their motivation for the week, how well they can put the volume in for 6 months, 12 months, etc. You know, not just from running bad, but also from running good. You know, like if they win.
It's super interesting to say that, because it's also, I play, cash games, and sometimes I get to play like a really special game, like ridiculously bigger buy-in. It's the same principle, right? You go play a huge cash game, you're normally playing, let's say 25-50, you play 501K, and that could be your whole year. Like I might get to play a game 1K, 2K once a year or something, and that literally, it's hard to go back and play a 10-20 or 25-50, right? Because it's like if you lose a huge number there, how do you go back and just like put in your normal work? So I think with that being said, and for myself, definitely when I play a much larger game or tournament, I am selling action, or I'm offloading, trying to offset it. And I think that would be a good way to look at it, or probably do it. Either you satellite in is one way to do it, or you could sell action on a platform or to your friends, and then kind of hedge it, because you don't want to, like, to your point, you don't want to put all of it, and it's just sort of mentally doesn't work like that. You can't just leave everything on the line, or you shouldn't. I mean, I guess that's not GTO or Kelly criterion to put it like that. So I think that's a very interesting point. You could say the same for cash games. You just don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to throw off your whole ecosystem, your whole system, and balance.
I mean, in terms of putting it all on the line, I think it completely depends. Like, I think the biggest regret I have in my career or my life is that I didn't put more on the line when I was, say, 22, 23. Like, I got up to like a couple of $100,000 bankroll like quite quickly through luck. And at that point, because I'd gone from like $2,000 to say $300,000 like way quicker than I should have done. When I got to $300,000, I was like, fuck, I need to protect. I can't go back to 2000. I need to protect and stabilize this $300,000. But really, I was playing and studying all day, every day. Poker was everything. I should have went all in. And I used to watch videos of like Bryn Kenny doing interviews about how he went from 0 to 2 million. And I was like, fuck, I wouldn't, what is this guy doing? He's completely approaching it the wrong way. But now looking back in hindsight, like 10 years later, it's exactly what I should have done, you know, like, because I would have always gotten back to like 100,000 bankroll or 200,000, whatever it may have been. I should have backed myself enough that, okay, if it all goes wrong, I can get back to where I am now. That's fine. But I should really go from, I don't have a family, I don't have a mortgage, you know, I don't have kids, like I have no responsibilities. Poker is what I'm really good at. It's what I'm spending all day, every day thinking about, working on, etc. Like, let's really try to go for it, you know? There's so many opportunities where like I took 10% of myself or 20% of myself in a tournament where I should have just taken 100. Because like if I lost, let's say I had like a 500,000 bankroll and I was playing a $10,000 tournament. Like to me, losing the $10,000 was like, I don't want to lose 10,000, you know, because I'm going to play 215s tomorrow. But going from 490 to 500 or 500 to 510, like it doesn't really matter. But going from 500 to say 2 million, that's such a big difference, you know. So like, there's so many times where maybe I stayed and played online, like a Wednesday session on Stars and Full Tilt at the time, where I should have just flew to say Vienna or the Bahamas or whatever and really try to win a big tournament, you know. And like usually it's not going to happen, and I'm going to lose, you know, like 2% of my bankroll. But the times where it does really go well, I'm going to go to that next level, you know, because like I really think I always thought Bryn was wrong here, and I thought not that he was an idiot because I knew he was smart, but I always thought that Bryn was like he's so reckless and he's a degenerate, and he's a gambler, but he wasn't a. I don't think he was like that. I think he was very smart how he did it. He was really going for that big score and that big run, you know. And he has so much self-confidence and he really backs himself. And I think the people who don't do it, they like when I got this money, I went to see a financial advisor when I was like 24, and the financial advisor was like, you know, put your money here, make 5% a year here, like be safe here. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's really good. I'm gonna be set. There's no way I can go broke in the next 10 years. I'm just going to go up like this really nicely. And when I'm 30, I can, you know, have enough money to retire or whatever, or like be okay, be comfortable. But Bryn was like more like, no, I don't want to go like this. I want to go like that. And if I do go back down, then I can get back there, you know, like it's not this getting to here is not the difficult part. It's getting to like up here, which is very tough, you know. And I just never, I think we're conditioned from an early age, like not to gamble, not to take risks. Like we're not really taught like risk and reward, you know, like the people who mentor you when you're 20 are usually like 21-year-olds or 22-year-olds. It's a person who's just ahead of you. Whereas the people who I needed to be giving me advice when I was 20 were the people who were 30. Like I was thinking about making a book or writing a book and not being the author, but being like the designer of the book. So basically, chapter 1 would be a 20-year-old writing about what advice you would have for an 18-year-old. Chapter 2 would be a 25-year-old, what advice he would have for a 20-year-old. Chapter 3 would be a 35-year-old, advice for a 25-year-old. Because when I'm 20, I don't really know like what I should be doing. But the guy who's 30, like right now, I've made all the mistakes that a 20-year-old could make. You know, like I have all that experience. Like I'm in a really good position now to give advice to a 20-year-old. I'm not in a good position now to give advice to a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
I have 30-year-olds asking me like, how should I do that? How should I do this? How should I do that? I'm like, I don't know. Like I haven't made the mistakes to find out. But I think I could give really good advice to a 20-year-old poker player. So yeah, I think like a book like this on not just on poker but on life as well. You know, like how to approach life in your 20s, how to approach life in 30s. Like the regrets I have from my 20s would be a good chapter, I think, for a lot of people.
I gotta give a shout out to Bill Perkins, and I'm sure you've seen some of the tweets and stuff going on. And you know, Bill's one of my closest friends. He's put a lot of time and effort in this book, Die with Zero. I think you would really get a kick out of it. It's very interesting and sort of exactly what you're saying, talking about phases, different parts of your life, different times where, you know, it's like people think you should save or not, and really it's counterintuitive, but you know, it's sort of like, look, when you're 30, you're going to be able to ski and go to the Alps and travel the world or do something. When you're 70 or 80, you know, you're not. The same thing when you give money, if you're going to, you know, whatever, that type of thought process, like explaining why there's different parts, different phases. And, you know, it's easy to just kind of go through the motions. It's easy to just sort of just say, all right, like keep going. Things are good. I want to protect. I want to save. I want to gather. But sometimes it is important to take shots or do things. But to your point, if you're 45 and you have a wife and kids, that's not time to just maybe hop into high stakes poker and just take it up and start learning. It could be expensive. When you start like you or me, when we're younger, we really don't have anything. It's like, all right, I'm grinding, I'm building from nothing. I'm not really risking that much. I don't have, if poker doesn't work out, or if I, take some missteps, I can learn, I can rebuild, I can move on to something else. Whereas, it's just different. So there is different phases and different, different times of your life. So I think that's really interesting. Well said. How do you balance people? Because you are, I would say, you're a voice of poker, you're a face of poker, you're one of the more respected in the community. People really look to your opinion, and you've done a lot. You've got stable. I want to talk about BitB too. How do you, if someone says to you, Pads, my dream is to play poker. I love it. I want to do it. And of course it depends what part of their life they're in, what they got going on. And you're never going to say, look, go, promote, got to gamble, got to play poker. It's changed now too. But how do you sort of, it's because you don't know everyone's personality, and some people have addictive personality. How do you kind of present to someone that wants the poker dream, or you feel like they might have what it takes? How do you sort of, I don't know how to put it. How would you ease them in, or how would you manage your expectations, or get them into poker? And what advice would you give them to sort of go through the journey of becoming a professional poker player? Like, how do you attack that without, because you're a face of it and you've done well. You've done very well. But it's not for everyone. It's not going to always work like that, right? People, you don't just start poker, and just like professional sports or anything, it doesn't work out for a lot of people. So how do you kind of be careful and show this lifestyle, show that, you can do very well and make a living on poker, but just realize that won't be the case for most? How do you sort of balance that,
I would basically never advise somebody to do it. I have like a stable, right? So I have like big sample sizes of like data sets. So
Right.
the data set always goes from like bottom left to top right. So you always having, or it should be there, like how you see it. You always end up being, if you're a profitable player, the data always ends up being profitable. So like if you have 10 guys who have 30% ROI, eventually if they play a billion games, it's impossible for this graph not to have 30% ROI, right? However, if I have samples of our guys combined or even like if you take the top 10 players in the world online, let's say Lena, C. Darwin, Elmerix, European, all of these guys. If you put all of their sample sizes together, so if you put all the games they've ever played together, and then you look at a graph, there will be samples. There will be basically groups of games over a sample, let's say 10,000 or 20,000, where as a group they've all broken even because of variance. So someone coming into poker trying to grind their way up, there's just, first of all, they play lower stakes, so the field sizes are bigger, so there's more variance. But it's basically impossible for them to guarantee that it's going to be successful. The only people who I would basically recommend to play poker or really go for it are basically amateur players who basically played as a hobby, but maybe won the Sunday Million, maybe won the Party Million, maybe won the GG Masters, whatever it may be. So like they've been playing recreationally and then just like won something really lucky, and now they have a bankroll to kind of like fall back on. If someone starts from zero, I would never recommend them to play poker because it's just so likely that they're going to be unlucky, So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to people because of that. Like if my friends were going to start saying they want to play poker, they would have to accept. I would be like, okay, well, are you okay to break even for 2.5 years, even though you're the best player in the field? And if they say no, then I'm like, well, don't play poker, because you have to be able to accept the worst to be able to play, to be able to choose poker as a hobby or professional job or whatever,
For sure. That makes perfect sense. I do want to real quick before, you're not a live guy, right? You're not you've put so much time online. You're not a live grinder. You have 2.5 million in earnings. You've had some big cashes and deep runs, and it doesn't seem you play that often, but you seem to go, very deep when you do play. Talk to me a bit about this little stint here in 2017, in this about 4 or 5 day period. You go first, and at 25K, 10K, 10K. What was going on? What happened there? I mean, you scored 1.2 million basically in 3 days. How do you, I mean, it's hard no matter what, no matter how many people in a tournament, especially at the high level, even sit and goes, it'd be hard to win that. How did you do back to back wins, and what happened here?
Yeah, so in terms of like live poker, I feel like I'm a far better live poker player than online poker player. Um, However, I don't really enjoy it. I prefer the process of being in my office and grinding like 20 tables rather than playing one table. So I do kind of I do feel like I'm better at live poker, but I don't enjoy it at all. So if you look generally through the Hendon mob, I'll have like stints of cash in when I go to a series or whatever. But you'll see sometimes there's like 2 years out where I don't cash, where I just don't play. This time in 2017, I was having some kind of not mental issues, but like I was number one in the world in tournaments online, but I bricked kind of my last 10, 15 EPTs, whatever it may have been. And I had a blog on 2+2. I think it was called, I can't remember the name of the blog, but I used to update it every day and I'd be playing high stakes tournaments every day. And I would go to these EPTs and just not cash. And everyone would just tell me like, why do you do this? Like, why you keep putting yourself through this? You're obviously not good at live tournaments. Like, why you keep playing them? Just play online what you're good at. Like, I remember like very clearly like 5 or 6 of these messages like saying you suck at live poker, just play online where you make the money. Um, and I hated that. So I really wanted to prove them wrong. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Vegas this summer. I'm gonna fucking win a bracelet, 100%. Like I know that I'm really good at live poker. It's more to my skill set. 'Cause I'm more like of an exploitative player than a theoretical player. And so I went to Vegas and I played 30 tournaments and I cashed zero. And I was like, fuck, are these guys right? Am I just don't know what I'm doing? So like I flew home to London and I was with my girlfriend and my family and I was like, I have to play the main event because I won a seat, so I have to go back next week. But like, I'm just not gonna play live poker ever again. Like, I've tried hard. Maybe I'm either the most unlucky player at live or I'm the worst. So I went back to Vegas. I arrived that day of the 25K in July. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna play this 25K. I won this one. I was like, okay, well, maybe I was lucky. I think I played the next day or maybe 2 days later. Oh, sorry, the main event was the next day. I played the main event. I think I bagged like top 5 chips or something in the main event. And then the next day I played the 25K, did well, won it again. Then I busted the main event and played this Bellagio Cup, whatever it was, and won this. And for the last kind of 2 years or 3 years of playing a lot of live poker, I had it on my mind that when I win the bracelet or when I win this, I'm gonna have such an amazing feeling that I'm going to prove everyone wrong and I'm going to just have such a great inside feeling. But after winning these 3 tournaments, I was with my friend Jason McConnon, a good friend, and we were in a restaurant and I was getting all these messages on my blog, which people had been giving me negative messages, 3 weeks earlier, and said, "Oh wow, you finally cracked live poker. Like, what have you done? What have you changed in your game? Like, you just won these 3 tournaments." Like everyone was asking me for like coaching for live and stuff, and I was like, "You're the same guys who talked me down like 2 months ago. Like, you didn't have my back then, and now you're trying to like praise me. Like, I did nothing differently. I just ran well over 3 tournaments. Like all of these, like I was expecting to have positive thoughts. Then I just kind of realized that people are just going to judge you based on how well you run, how lucky you are. And I didn't. I think you can check the Hendon mob, but I think I didn't play again for like I maybe played once in the next. Yeah, I think I didn't play again. Played a couple of times, yeah, but I didn't go to Vegas the year after. I skipped the series. Like people are expecting me to go and play like loads of the World Series after then. I basically played a few party events and maybe like a couple of local tournaments around me, but I just had no desire to play this live. Live. I wasn't chasing GPI or anything like this, and it taught me a lot about life. That just like people are gonna, if things go bad, people are not gonna be there for you, and if things go good, they want to be there for you. And yeah, I just I realized I keep my circle around me tighter, have less people around me. I stopped blogging on 2+2 after then, and yeah, I just had my BitB crew around me, and we backed each other. If things went badly, they backed me. If things went good, they didn't like tell me I was the greatest or anything like this. They kept me level-headed, which was great for me. So like the best thing about winning these tournaments basically was teaching me about how people who are not close to me, how they're going to deal with me and how they're going to see me, rather than necessarily the money. Obviously, the money was great, don't get me wrong. But I think the life lesson was was almost better than the money, you know.
For sure. And how do you deal with the, let me ask how you deal with variance, or how someone could approach, let's just say you do play between 200 and the 5K, or 500 and 5K buy-ins. How kind of frustrating or funny is that? Like, you don't have an NBA player that plays one game in the NBA, one in the one on the what the league below, or let's take a Premiership player because it's easier, right? There's a lot of leagues in London, in England. So let's say you're Premiership player, you're not playing one game with the Premiership, one game with the second, the next division below, then the third, and it's like, oh, how are you performing or whatever. At poker, how do you deal with that though? If you're playing 500s and 2Ks and 5Ks and the game's the same, really, right? Like, sure, the 5K is gonna be tougher competition or whatever, but how can you, it's a little bit tricky because the variance comes into play there. So how do you sort of be realistic with not being results oriented over, how big of a sample size is enough, and how does that, how come I lose a flip at the 5K but I win in the 200? I'm winning running pure. So like, how do you deal with that? Is it just volume and just understand that's how it works? Because it's a little frustrating when that's how you're like you said, the results are being results oriented. That's how people view, for the most part, is results. It comes down to. So I have trouble understanding that too. How can you actually deal with that?
You have to first of all understand it. So like, first of all, like, go into like poker variance calculators and see like how unlucky can I potentially be. Then you have to, whenever there's a negative, you have to make a positive out of the negative. So if there's a negative that I'm going to be unlucky 80% of the times that I play, you have to think, well, what is the positive behind this negative? Because whenever there's a negative, there's always going to be a positive. Whenever there's like a financial crash, somebody's prospering, Like, I mean, obviously coronavirus is like the worst thing to happen, but when coronavirus happens, like, some people prosper in some ways, one way or another, And I think in terms of poker variance, it's so bad that it's almost impossible to deal with. That if you have 100 players and all of them are the same skill level as you, but because poker variance is so tough that when they have their bad run, 20% are going to drop out, that if you know that you're going to stick with it no matter what, then from there being 100 good players and 100 bad players, there's now 100 bad players and 80 good players, And then after 5 years, there's going to be 60. Then after 8 years, there's going to be 40. So like, the way that I see it is that if I can deal with this variance better than this guy here and this guy there, then it's actually a positive for me. It's actually going to make my overall return on investment higher than if everyone just like cashed out their EV every single hand in every single tournament. So I kind of realized that it's good if, let's say, these guys who like to play all the EBTs and all the party stops, like, if they just like are going to drop out after 3 years because they just haven't cashed the tournament. Because like, let's say you play 20 high stakes tournaments a year live, it's so easy to just like brick 60 of them, or like lose like $1 million or whatever it may be. So like, if I know that like half of the people who play the next 3 years are going to drop out because of the variance, then that's actually like a good thing for me. And as long as I trust my process and I'm going to stick with it and eventually it will be okay, I'm going to make more money from there being really bad variance than I am going to lose money from variance. So that's kind of how I see it. One thing which I've always done, which everyone does, which I actually think now is bad, is swap action. So like, everyone is like swapping action and trying to like lose a little bit less. It's like, let's say you lose 10K on a Sunday, but someone wins a tournament and you get 2K back. It's like a little bit of a rebate, right? It's like, instead of losing 10K, you lose 8K. And if you look at, oh, well, I'll get 2K back, okay, but still, it doesn't really change that much. But like, let's say you swap with lots of people and then you have your big score, because your whole ROI is based on that huge score you have. It's like, let's say it might be winning the World Series Poker main event, it may be winning in the EBT, it may be winning the big game, whatever it may be. A lot of your ROI comes on winning that big tournament, And if when you win that big tournament, you then give out 50% back to everyone, it kind of like really shatters the score you have. Like, when I won this big tournament on GG, I came second for like 1.6 million, I think it was. I think I swapped out something like, I think I maybe swapped out like 600K's worth of it. So like, I got like 1 million instead of like 1.6 million, which is, it's still good. But like, let's say I was getting back like 50K or 30K or 20K from them when they win the tournament. Like, it's not really making, like, I heard Greg Merson, he swapped out, like, he said on his thing with Remco that I think he swapped out something like 5 or 6 million of the 10 million. So like he swapped out like 50% or something. And like, sure, when you get 50K from a guy winning the main event, it's good. It's good to get that 50K back at the end of the summer. But it doesn't even make or break your summer. Like, you're buying in the World Series, I don't know, 200,000. Like, the 50K is not like going to make you a huge winner, but giving away that 5 million when you have that really big score, I think it's like I think almost the risk reward of staking or swapping or whatever it may be, the swapping side, I think is actually not that good. And I've swapped every tournament I've played in my life in history with the same people, etc. But I actually think that it's better now in hindsight to just go 100% on your own. And I'm still supporting the people around me that I would have swapped with. Like, they're still my friends, my best friends. I'm talking poker with every day. I'm helping them get better. They're helping me get better. But I don't think you need to decrease the variance from a swapping point of view. I think it's better to basically, if variance is going to be a dictator of how well you can do in poker, just bring it on. Don't try to decrease it a little bit. Just really fucking go face on and be like, okay, well, eventually I'm gonna beat variance, but it may take 3 years, it may take 5 years, it may take 2 years, but I'll get there. But I want to have all the positives once I do get there. I'm not sure if you understand what I mean by all that, but
I get it completely. I guess another way to look at it too is you could just sell. You're putting staking and swapping the same sort of ball there, but you could kind of dictate how much, what buy-ins you're playing then, right? And if you want to play higher, you could just sell maybe, and that's simpler to do, sell like a piece of it of your own. And in theory, it's the same as swapping, but I see your point. I think it really depends on the person, and it depends on what stakes you're playing, right? And a lot of probably people that are swapping, in your case, it doesn't matter necessarily. It's not really about staying in the game or, staying alive. But a lot of these guys that play these high rollers and are on these circuits like that adds up, right? Because it's like, all right, getting that back a little bit, or it sort of just takes down what their actual buy-in is. And so I think that's part of it. But to your point, I agree. If you can afford it, and if you're going for it and putting the work in, that is like, you're only going to have so many monumental scores. And if you have to give that chunk up, it is gonna that's sort of where a lot of the value comes, right? You get that one score. Or
in the high rollers, it's a little bit different because usually first place in the high roller buy-in is like 7 buy-ins. So you get like, if you get back 1.5 buy-ins, that's like really good. But like, let's say Sunday Million, let's say you have like a 60K bankroll and you're playing the Sunday Million, or you're playing a 215 which has like 200,000 for first. First place here is 1,000 buy-ins, or 10,000 buy-ins, whatever it may be, depending on the size of it. So like, swapping, a lot of people still swap like 5% of 10 people in the Sunday Million. Where if I get back, like 10K from someone winning the Sunday Million when I have 60K, it doesn't change my bankroll that much. Like, going from 60K to 70K, it's not that big of a difference. It's not life changing. If I win 200K and have to give back 100K, then that's a big difference if I have a 60K back.
That could also mentally be debilitating, right? That actually may hurt you mentally. It might hurt, like, you don't think about it, but you got to think about if you actually hit it, how that looks. That's a great observation. That's interesting. I guess I haven't really thought.
I don't want to offer financial advice. I could be completely wrong here. I know I've always swapped myself, but right now I believe especially if you're younger, 20 to 23, just gamble hard. So that if you have a huge score when you're 23, don't give up a huge percentage of it. So yeah.
Very, very nice. All right, well, let's talk a bit. You got the I Love Poker hat on. I love that hat. I love PartyPoker. We're both representing this brand. We've got a lot of love for Rob. I know Rob Young, Tom Waters. That we could name a lot of people at PartyPoker that do so many things and so many positives for the game. Talk about your role at PartyPoker and how long you've been there, and how did you decide to go with PartyPoker versus some of the competitors?
Sure. So I think when I was, I think it must have been like 4 or 5 years ago now that I joined Party, maybe 4. Basically, Party at the time were a dead site almost. Rob had taken over, and basically the whole site was kind of dead. One second. And I think there was no tournaments, so cash games weren't really running. Like, everything was basically dead. And I saw almost like a project, like, okay, I'd done this job before as a full-time job. So like my job, like I said, when I was 20, 21, 22, was I was a poker ecologist. So like my job was 9 to 5 to do calls with poker sites to tell them how to run their site better. So like I didn't really want to come in as an ambassador. I told you I didn't like live poker or anything like this. I prefer online poker. So I didn't want to come in like wear a hat and go and play like around the world on the circuit. Like that was never for me. That's why I never agreed sponsorship deals before, because they always wanted me to like go to play this tournament in London or Barcelona, like, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that, like that's not me. Um, I thought I understood the ecosystem. I thought I understood what sites did well, what sites didn't do well, and I could help Party along their journey to kind of get to higher levels, how to approach structures, how to approach what pros wanted. I think I basically looked at the site, looked at what Party did, and I saw that they charged for withdrawals. I think it was. So if you withdrew, they charged you money. If you had money in your account for more than 3 months, they charged you money. And I was like, look, I'm not going to be a face for a site which does this. So like, if I come in, I'm going to be very vocal, and I'm going to not be a drama queen and be like, well, if you don't do this, then I'm not going to stay with you and like hold them to ransom. I'll be like, throughout my journey, if I feel like you're doing something which I can't stand by, I'm just not going to stand by it. So like, if I disagree with you, I will publicly say I disagree with you. I'm not going to just take a paycheck and be that guy. A lot of people will travel the circuit and take the paycheck, and that's fine, that's good, that's what they want to do. But for me, I wouldn't, I just couldn't do that, because I'm so vocal about other sites that if I allowed Party to do things and just stood by, then I feel like it would be very kind of hypocritical, let's say. So like, yeah, as things went on, we got more pros, more ambassadors, Twitch streamers, etc., etc. So there was less kind of just me working with Rob and Tom and the guys, and there was more people like yourself who could give experts' opinions on things which you knew better than what I knew. We brought in people like Jason Kuhn and Ike and these guys who could help with, let's say, when Short Deck was added to the site. If it was added when I first joined, I would have had to have like helped consult how to put Short Deck on the site. I don't know Short Deck, so like having a bigger team of pros like Jason and Nikita and Ike, like these guys can also help, which is great, I think, now.
For sure. And what's your relationship with Rob Young, and what do you feel about what's happening? Because there's a ton of changes in poker right now. I'm just going to rattle off a few things. The real names on Party seems like a really big deal. Sorry, I rapid fire. I just got to throw it out the real names, no HUDs. Want to cover that, and just overall with Rob talk before we cover those things. What about with Rob and him taking diving in? I mean, really taking some chances, which sort of leading right with some of these sites and people kind of looking to see what's going to happen. How are people going to respond? What do you feel about Rob and his willingness to sort of just dive in and do what he believes is right?
Yeah, and the best thing about Rob is that he really does dive in. So like, let's say two different sites have like an issue with bots. Like the CEO or like the guy leading or the investor, whatever it may be of one side, he'll be like, okay, yeah, well, we need to look into bots, and like he'll pass it down to somebody else and hire someone, whatever. The way Rob does it is like, okay, he hires an expert, but he will go and understand it to the top degree, that he will understand bots and how they work better than any professional, basically any professional poker player. So like he gets himself really to the top to understand things in depth. So like if there's let's say there's a $10,000 high roller with it and we want to do a new structure, Rob will actually like play the first tournament, so he understands how it plays. He will get the feeling of it. So like he really jumps in very deeply. So I think that's the best thing about Rob compared to other sites, is that he really is kind of understanding the issue. He's not like, okay, well, people are saying we need to change X, Y, or Z. Let's change X, Y, or Z. He's like, he tries to understand it before he changes it, or if he does change it, he tries to experience the change so that he understands how the players are going to feel and experience it. So that's what I like most about how Rob deals with things. A lot of the stuff with changes like real names and HUDs and stuff like this, I think with HUDs in particular, I think they don't give an advantage really. Like if I played against Rob in a cash game, like a HUD's not going to tell me how to beat Rob, because first of all, you need to play tens of thousands of hands to have reliable samples for delicate issues. And for the issues which aren't delicate, like BPIP or how many hands he calls pre-flop, like if I'm playing against Rob, I would just feel how he's playing and how many hands he's playing. You know, like if I see him show down playing 7 deuce, then I'm gonna know he plays lots of hands and I make a note. So like hoods, I think the industry doesn't understand hoods really, to be honest.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think it's a great thing that Party did. I think that I think it's a bit overblown how that all works, and I think also the amount of people that actually can use it really well, that can break down, you know, like a Jungle Man or maybe you or other people that could exploit turns and rivers, you know, like that are real, because a lot of people use HUDs exactly that, especially when multi-tabling. It's like looking at the PFR, looking at maybe it helps you when you have 8 tables going and you can see, you know, in a place where it's close, maybe a little bit, but I think it is a bit overblown.
Yeah.
So interesting. And what about the real names? What's your take on that?
So I think real names. I mean, I think if you do real names, I think every site should have real names first of all. But if you're going to do real names, everyone has to play in real names. So like on some sites now, that half the field are real names and half the field are aliases. Like I play against Almerix and European on some sites, and European has his real name, and Almerix has an alias. You know, and they're both up a lot of money on the site, and it's like it's a like people can change their name to Patrick Leonard and play on the site, and people don't know it's a real Patrick Leonard. They can type into chat box, calling people, fish or whales, or when I see you in the next tournament, I want to fight you. They can say that, and because I can change my alias to say Jeff Gross, and I'm playing and I lose a pot. I'm like, when I see you in X, Y, or Z, I'm gonna beat your ass, whatever, and I'm saying that as Jeff Gross, and then it can cause a lot of trouble.
That's a great point as well, because I have on one of the sites someone is my name, and I get asked in Twitch, I get asked on Discord, or people bring it up and I see it and it just says that, and it's like, yeah, someone doesn't know. And like when I see names too now, like if I'm on I look around and I see it, I don't know, because like it makes sense. Like a player might want to just show their real name, especially if they're a really good player. Maybe they want sponsorship and whatnot. But then it's like now they're using that and it's not them, and it's kind of tricky. And then they have to explain. Like they're getting asked all the time, is it them? And that's actually, I never even thought of that point as well. So yeah, I think that would be I think that's another.
What happened in this GG tournament where I had the big score is that somebody's name in the tournament was Patrick L, and they sold action at a decent markup in this selling feature that they have on the site. So they made my name that alias.
Okay.
So they sold action in my name, and then people were messaging me on Twitter saying, "Oh, I had 5% of you in this 25K," and I was like, "What are you talking about? I haven't sold any action this tournament." And like people thought they had action in me. And then when I tweeted that I would win 1.6 million, people think, "Oh wow, I've just won, X."
Wow. So you actually probably got like a fair amount of, like, you actually had people messaging you that legitimately thought they won, even, which is crazy.
Well, they checked the lobby and saw they haven't been paid the money or whatever, but basically people had bought action in someone thinking it was me when it was somebody else,
Right.
So like,
so it's
if
malicious.
I said to Daniel that everyone who has a real name on GG should have like a blue tick, like on Twitter you're verified. So like if it's a real name and it's verified, they should have a blue tick so everyone knows this is actually the person, so it can't cause trouble. Maybe they do it and I give them some free consultation there, I'm not sure, but to me that's the only way you can. But even so, I think everyone should, if it's real names, everyone should just have real names, I think. So I like real names. I think it brings in a way better dynamic. I think people's etiquette is better. People are less likely to button people, to stall, to type stuff in chat box. They'll make the overall playing experience better if it's in real names, I think. There's so many internet warriors who type shit in the chat box. When you see them at live tournaments, they're the biggest gentlemen that you'll meet. It's nice that you can't hide behind that, I think.
For sure. Guys, just to remind you, we do have a $109 ticket courtesy of Party Poker Pads. We're going to be giving that away. To be eligible, go over to Twitter, ask a question, follow the instructions, and you'll be eligible whether we ask or answer your question. We do want to leave some time. I know Pads has got a busy day. I do want to make sure we get to some of these as well. We got other stuff to cover. If you're watching live, you can ask a question too. If I can put it up on the screen, if we see one we like. And I guess I wanted to talk about BitB because this is very interesting, and some of the best players in the world involved in this. And I see your partners. It looks Tell me if I'm pronouncing it right. Obviously, no Ellermex and European. Samuels are definitely some of the better players, better regarded, respected players in the poker community. Talk to me about BitB, how this came about, and who these gentlemen are that you're here pictured with.
Yeah, so when I was just starting to play tournaments and I had this like initial bankroll, I was a cash game player and I found tournaments like relatively easy at the time. And looking back now, I was actually terrible. So I believed that I thought tournaments were easy, but they it was very different to how I basically arrogantly thought that I was better than everyone at tournaments. Where looking back now, I wasn't good at tournaments for sure. Like I didn't understand short stack play or anything, but I arrogantly thought that I knew tournaments better than anybody else, and I knew that I thought European was like the best player in the world. So I was like, okay, like European, let's come together, give our basically secret strategy to people, bankroll them, and they will make money because we're making all this money. We know more than anyone else knows. So like, surely this will just work, you know?
When was this? What year did you start this and have this idea roughly?
7 years ago, I guess now. So this was just a business, like pure business. How can we make money? So I didn't know any of the players. We started staking people, and it was a business for years and years, and we did really good. But as time went on, it became less and less of a business for me. Like in the first year, if someone won the Sunday Million, I was working out, okay, well, if he wins the Sunday Million and we give him 50%, then I get 25%, and then how much money is that? So this is how much. That's what it was like at first. But like in year 3 and year 4, it was like if a guy wins the Sunday Million, it was just like, okay, that's amazing for him, and I was not really caring about the impact it had on me financially. So you'd start making decisions where you're just thinking about the player rather than yourself, kind of thing. Whereas in year 1, it's all about how can we maximize revenues? Like this is a business. But yeah, as you have like, imagine you have like a new office or a startup company and you hire like 5 staff. You don't really have too much loyalty to those staff. Like let's say those 5 staff stay and work in your office for 7 years. After 7 years, you're usually like good friends, best friends. Like they go to your wedding. Like maybe it's the godfather of your son, or who knows. Like these people, you socialize with them. Like if you have a startup company and you hire a guy called Brian, you probably don't go for drinks with him every Friday night. You probably don't know his wife. Slowly you start building that relationship up and you start meeting each other more and more outside of work. Then after 7 years, you probably go for barbecues every weekend together. You may even go on holiday together. So like BitB's kind of evolved to a way where they used to be employees and now they're like our best friends. Like we actually go on holiday with these guys and they are best friends. Like if I want to speak about football, I speak with the players from BitB. If I want to speak about a new movie I just watched, I speak it with them. If I get married, all of the guys will go to my wedding. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's gone from a business, and maybe the problem from a business point of view was we didn't turn over the guys enough. So we've kept the same guys for say 5, 6, 7 years. What we probably should have done is like get rid of the guys after a year, like give them enough ammunition to go by themselves after 1 year or 2 years, and bring in like a new breed of people that we don't have like a not romantic relationship with, but like a long-term friendship with, because right now my only interest is like how well does my friend do. It's not like how well do I do via my friend, because like imagine you have a friend in real life. Just think about a friend you have for like 7, 8 years, like someone you're really close to. Imagine your whole relationship with him was how much money he made you. Like that'd be like a really weird friendship to have, right? So like they're my best friends or like close friends, and it's too awkward for me to have that kind of. I don't want to tell them, look, like you need to do this week to make me more money. You need to play this amount of games next month. Your volume needs to be this amount of games, because imagine telling your best friends in life these things. It's like it's just weird. It's awkward, like I don't want to have a phone call with them and bollock someone and be like, why haven't you played this week? Like, why haven't you sent me an audit? You've only come to 85% of training sessions or coaching sessions. Like, you haven't sent me 10 hands this week. It's like, I've allowed the relationship to get to a certain point, and it's my fault, But at the same time, I also get more out of it as well. I have a better support system this way. They push me to be a better poker player. They rely on me to be at the top of the game to help them improve as players, and I don't want to let these guys down. Whereas if it's a guy who I've never met before and I've staked for a month, there's less pressure on me, because if this guy wants to leave, then, fuck him, he can leave kind of thing. Whereas these guys, I don't want to let down. So, yeah, that's kind of the evolution of the company from.
And tell me, what's the actual, like, how does it work exactly? Let's say I go to the website here. I want to be a part of BitB, or who are you looking for? Because you say, welcome to BitB Staking, see what we do. You're pushing, are you looking for, who's your dream? Well, let me ask you this. How many people are in BitB? How many current, roughly, how does it fluctuate in terms of the people you're staking and not, and how has that changed over the years from your model?
Sure. So we used to have maybe like 200-ish players, and we'd basically drop 10 players a month and take 10 players on. So you'd keep kind of
it's like the Premiership, relegation and promotion and the whole deal, right?
But as time has gone on, in the last 2 years, we've probably dropped like 60-70% of people. And I started staking a new person in the last 2 years, maybe twice. So we brought 2 new people in, and a lot of people have left. Maybe they've quit poker, maybe they've had to leave for X, Y, or Z reason. But right now, we don't take new people on. We're not this staking company trying to just take all the money in the world. The way that I see it is that they're my friends. They motivate me to be better at poker. We pay for other coaches by their EV. So like, I think we have maybe like, in our main group, we probably have like 20 players and like 10 coaches. Usually the ratio of coaches to player would be like 10 to 1. So you'd have 20 to 1. So you'd have like 200 players and 10 coaches. But our ratio is 2 to 1. So we have 20 players and 10 coaches around about. So obviously that's not a business model where you can just pay for 10 coaches off 20 players. It just doesn't really work. And then have a lot of profit for yourself. So basically we try to break even through the coaches, but via the players' EV. So the players essentially are just like paying for the coaches, and we're not trying to like profit a lot of money. Sure, we probably have like we probably do have like a little bit of a margin, but we're not like the amount of hours I put in versus the dollar I get back. I would make more money. I don't know, playing $10 sitting goes away. Like
let me just train of thought too. Do you do one-on-one coaching? Have you done that? And what would be what's your rate? Like if someone reaches out, what would be something you would generally do for coaching? Or do you just, because of BitB and all the stuff you do, you don't really have time for one-on-one coaching?
Yeah, so basically I wouldn't do one-on-one coaching with someone outside of BitB anymore, because like I said, we have 10 coaches and people are trying to give information inside the community. We want to stick inside the community. So like we want to stay ahead of the game by having like coaches who will give information that won't spread, So like, let's say I have a guy like Romeo Pro who I thought was the best player in the world. If he coaches me and then I coach like a random person what he coached me, he's not going to want to coach me the same thing in the future, Or like if he just finds out, like imagine he finds out this like software that no one has. He's like, wow, I found out how to play the button with 17.5 big blinds, like a very specific thing, whatever. He's going to be a little bit hesitant to tell me if I'm going to just tell the whole world, So like, I kind of respect what other people give me in terms of content, and I don't want to spread it kind of that way. I think one day when BitB ends or I leave BitB or whatever, I will do some kind of call. So I'll do some kind of large scale kind of, I don't know, whether it be a course, whether it be some videos. I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but I don't see myself doing one-on-one coaching. It's just not a very efficient way of spending hours, I don't think. Because if I can make a video and 10 people can buy the video versus selling 1 hour of coaching to one guy, it's probably better to just make.
Yeah, that's how I feel too about Twitch or just other things, right? It's like if you can do more or be able to, what's doing 1 hour for more people than do of just one-on-one, it becomes a bit complicated. And then honestly, I don't know if you agree with this, but I always tell people, whether it's again, there's 7, 10 programs, maybe 5 or 6 well-regarded coaching programs, right? So it's like if someone wants to pay you or me or whoever, whatever your hourly may be for coaching, they're probably going to get a lot more value and do at their own pace and risk, pay like $1,000 or $500, get a coaching program with 40, 100 hours, 200 hours of material and coaching for the same price as like 1 hour with you or I, or 2 hours, right? And it's like, what are we really going to do? We're going to talk. We're going to review a hand. You know, it's like, it's kind of, I always recommend, I think it's more value for the person as well. Well, so when is the last person you've brought on? Like, if someone goes to BitB, could they apply? Who would you be taking? What kind of credentials would you look to bring someone on?
People apply, but we generally just don't really accept. The last person we took on, he'll probably laugh when we speak about it now, but I went to a UK tournament in Dustle Dawn, I think it was, and there was these like 4 guys, and they just kind of stood out to me. They played like low stakes, like, I don't know, $10 tournaments or whatever, and they just kind of stood out to me, and I was like, I'm gonna stake these like separately myself. So I made like a mini stable with these 3 guys, or 4 guys, sorry, and I was like, I'm just gonna coach you for free and just do this, and I just like you guys, and like, I'll stake you, but I'm not really expecting to make money here or anything. And I just like you guys, like something about you guys I just like. And these guys did it, and they had varying levels of commitment and stuff. And they all had jobs. They were working full-time jobs, had families and stuff. And there was one guy called Andy, and I just thought he had just something about him that he could be in BitB, and he would also give value to BitB as well for his enthusiasm and for his hard work and through his success and other things in life. Like he could play golf off like a very good standard. Like he basically he succeeded in what he put his mind to. And I said, I'm gonna end, like, I did the 6-month trial with the guys where I just give them 6 months of my time, and then they can then go off and play themselves. Essentially, I've given them enough like ammunition to be good poker players. But this one guy I really wanted to like join BitB, and he quit his job, and he has like a mortgage and all this kind of stuff, and he took a big risk, and he's in the community now, and he's very well liked, and he's very enthusiastic, and yeah, he's the last person that we brought in. Before him, I can't remember. I can't remember anyone else in the last couple of years. Like I said, we really have a close knit. It's like I hate the cliche like, oh, we're a family, because we're not a family, but like we are very close friends, like bringing in an outsider is often, it makes things a bit awkward sometimes, they don't understand the chemistry or whatever.
Very, very cool. And is that something you guys have weekly calls? Do you do like how intensive is the coaching or studying, or I guess it's changed or it depends, but is it like
it depends,
you guys on a group call together, or is it like pockets, like 4 or 5 in a group, or
no, like everything you could imagine really. So like let's say I have a epiphany about how to, I have an idea, just something in my mind, I will just make a video, give it, and we just upload it to a site. We do coaching content, so like group coaching, like seminars. We did a boot camp 2 weeks ago where twice a day for 7 days, we basically had 7 coaches who all prepared different topics on different parts of the game, and nobody played poker for 7 days, and we just intensively studied poker together as a group, like scheduled times, the same times every day for a week. This was before like WPT started, so they'd be ready for WPT. And now WPT started, and World Series, whatever else, they're then not studying as much kind of scheduled. But then when the sessions finish, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., they'll jump on group calls together and do like cool downs and stuff like this. So like there's just so many different ways. We have like hand analysis channels, strategical channels. Yeah, like I have a blog where I update my blog. I used to update it every day. Now I update it every week. All the coaches have a blog. So like they get to see the thoughts of 10 very, very top players like Sam Grafton, Graf Tekel, Sick One, European, Dietrich Fast, Elmerix, mental game coaches. I'm probably missing a couple of guys out who I shouldn't be. Ben ZB, like whoever else. There's yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, that's very cool. And what does BitB stand for?
So it's kind of a weird thing, but when I was 17, I made a blog called Best in the Business, and I was playing $1 sit and goes at the time, and I basically made this blog saying that within 5 years or 7 years, I'm going to be the #1 poker player in the world. And I updated my blog every day. Like I wanted to be the best in the business, which is BITB. And then after I achieved it, #1 in pocket fives, I basically stopped the blog or whatever. And then we made BitB the stable. So it was like a lot of people in like UK poker like kind of read the blog because I was like really trying hard to get to the top, and I started from free rolls, $1 sit and goes or whatever. So like the name BitB kind of just stuck. Like people used to take the piss out of me a little bit. Like they used to call me BitB when I was playing like $1 sit and go. So it was like my blog was called BitB, and everyone's like, "Oh, how are you doing best in the business?" When I was like I was a huge whale or whatever. So like the name BitB kind of stuck with me because like almost like ironically like laughing at me about it. So
I like it. That's cool. I didn't realize. I didn't actually. I forgot. I think we did tell me that, but that I like that. I like that name. I didn't realize that's what it stood for. Let's. I know we're running low on time. We haven't even got to any questions, and I have a ton more. Do want to talk about the upcoming schedule. There's so much happening in the poker industry. We'll look at your pinned tweet talking about the financial landscape and what's going on. It seems like a boom, but the coronavirus, it's a bit skewed, and you think there could be a potential big problem. Let's talk about though PartyPoker, 100 million guaranteed on PartyPoker World Poker Tour. What do you believe about that? It looks like some guarantees have missed so far. It was a Omaha high-low first week to start. Now there's the pot limit Omaha stuff this weekend. There's turbos. There's 6 max, 8 max, different formats. It's a ridiculous series. How much of that are you going to be playing, and what do you think about the World Poker Tour and PartyPoker teaming up online?
Yeah, I mean, I played the last WPT. Well, first of all, I played the Irish Open, and I was surprised how good that was. And then I played the WPT. I guess it was like May, and that was really enjoyable. And now I've been really looking forward to the WPT upcoming. Like I'm quite honest. Like if I'm not looking forward to something, I just say like I don't play the Gladiator every night. I don't play like the Masters every night. Like I'm sure it's for some people, but it's not for me to grind it every night. I'm not afraid to say that. Like I don't play spin and goes on party or casino or anything. So I don't like try to push every product. But I do genuinely believe that the WPT is like a very quality product. First of all, real names. I think that's really good. I enjoy playing real names. Second of all, there's only one re-entry, which I really like. I think when you're playing like prestigious tournaments and you can enter, 5, 6, 7, 3, however many times, I think it's a little bit too much. What Party have done is they've stopped re-entry at 50 big blinds. So like, if you do have like a bad beat early, like you lose aces v kings, or you lose a flush draw versus a set, or a set versus a flush draw, you do get an extra chance to revive.
Or if you just punt it off, it doesn't have
Yeah,
to be a cooler.
or,
Yeah.
or if you punt it off, but you're back in with like a reasonable stack size. What I've kind of realized is in a lot of these prestigious tournaments, if you allow re-entry to like 15 big blinds or 5 big blinds or 20 big blinds, everyone keeps re-entering, and then you get to like the middle phase of the tournament, which should be when it starts to become serious. But there's so many people with like 10 big blinds and 5 big blinds and 7 big blinds that if you have an amateur who likes to play loose and play lots of pots, can't really play them because everyone just has like 7 big blinds and they're all in all the time. There's not much post flop play going on. It's like pre-flop all in. Let's gamble. Let's try to get a big stack. And I think in these prestigious tournaments, like when I started playing EPTs and stuff, it was all about not going bust. It was all about getting a big stack, playing post flop, small ball. Like Daniel Negreanu, Mr. WSOP. It's like small ball. Everyone knows small ball. Don't go bust in the tournament. And I think the fact that WPT really pushes that and isn't really like pushed on re-entries, and you can't re-enter after 50 big blinds, and the average stack is always high. I think that makes playing the tournaments a lot more enjoyable. Like I play more flops, I play more turns, I play more rivers. There's more kind of maneuverability, and I think that's good both for amateurs and for pros. And people will say that I say this like because it's better for me and I make more money this way, but it's better for amateurs too who want to enjoy their experience, right? Like amateurs are going to lose generally if they play shallow or if they play deep. But it starts to give an amateur more of a experience for his money,
Right.
Yeah, for me, I like that. I like that there's a leaderboard. I've always liked chasing leaderboards. I like that there's tournaments like Omaha 8 or better. Like, I mean, this is really good.
Yeah, that was fun. I forget how much fun those tournaments are. There really is a lot of skill and thought in those. I hope those start becoming more popular. I guess it's interesting because it is definitely a lot of people like that game, but it just doesn't get sred that often. So that was cool to see Party take a chance on that. There's a little bit of an overlay on some of the WPT portion, the 3200. But yeah, it was fun.
And what we're seeing now is that like 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, all the sites were smashing every guarantee. And now we have this little crash where everything misses by like 20%, 30%. It gives now a little bit of there's value for everyone, you know. So like in the last WPT, everything smashed the guarantees, and maybe some tournaments were tough or whatever. Now every tournament looks like it has like 20% overlay, 30% overlay, 10% overlay. You're basically not paying rake for any tournament because it's all being put back in by the site, whether that be stars, whether that be party, whatever. You know, there's a lot more value now than there was like value 2 months ago in terms of more people played, but the people who stopped playing, the site's basically putting the money in for them, you know. So like a lot of people think that, oh well, all the amateurs stopped playing because they lost their money. Well, maybe that's the case, but the sites are still running big guarantees, and they're basically putting the money in for the amateurs, you know. So like there's a lot of value for people right now. Yeah, I think it's
And I agree. And what do you think about the winning the title? Let's say now World Poker Tour, I think 5 tournament champion events, 12 championship events, 5 like where you get your name on the trophy and it's a real event. Obviously, COVID, you know, things change. You have to pivot, look at sports, look at what's going on in the world, no fans, leagues just getting started up. So things are different. It's a different time. It could be for some time. It's unsure. What do you think about winning a WPT? Let's take that, for example. You win a WPT. Does that count? In your mind, does that mean you're a World Poker Tour champion? And how do you think the field is more difficult to win the WPT right now, like one of the 3,200 main event coming up, or live? What's more difficult?
So I think the way that one of the reasons why the weeks are scheduled as they are, we have like an 8 max week, a 6 max week, an Omaha week, etc., is that you can really say that, okay, I won the Omaha championship, or I won the 6 max championship, or I won the 8 max championship. If you just have like WPT, 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 just random events all the time, then I think it's not as prestigious. But when you have it broken down into weeks, you can be like, well, who won the Omaha warm up? Who won the 8 max warm up? You know, because in each week we have the same schedule. You know, we have like a warm up, we have a main event, and we have like a second chance. You know, so you can really look back and be like, well, who won the Omaha warm up? Who won the 8 max warm up, etc. So I like that. I think in terms of like titles and triple crowns and this kind of stuff, we have to be extremely careful. And I think limiting this to 5 is very good. I think giving out like 50 or 60 championships in terms of prestige, I don't think is good. I think the way that we've done it, where you know you get the 15K watch and you get the plaque and the diamonds, whatever it may be, for like 5 events, and there's a lot of prestige over these events. I think that's very important to do. And if we did it for every event that you got to watch, and we give away 70 watches, I'm not sure that would be the play. So yeah, that's how I see it.
We see a line on that. All right, well, Patrick, I know you have to get going soon. Why don't we try to get some questions in, and then you kind of give me like a warning when the last one or two, because
Sure.
I think you set the course record here at over 100 questions. So you might have to be a repeat guest, man. I might have to just pull you back in here after you win a WPT title or something coming up here. We'll do a double header. All right, so let's see. What are we going to dive into? There's a lot. What do you like the most about Party Poker? Let's start with that. Give Party some love out here.
Love the most about PartyPoker. I like that I can trust the brand. I like that the things they're doing behind the scenes I know are legal. I know they're legit. I know that I don't think there's a chance of like a Black Friday happening because of PartyPoker, and I think that's a big thing. Like, I wouldn't want to represent a site where they're potentially doing things which could be causing the end of poker. So being able to say that everything that I say, I know that I actually believe. I think that's what I really like being as an ambassador for. What I like most about it is that they are not trying to milk the players. Like they could do re-entries till 5 big blinds, 10 big blinds, 12 big blinds, and make so much more money. They could they could do a lot of different things essentially to like look after their bottom line, and people wouldn't be able to contend it because their competitors are doing the same thing. They're like, well, they're doing it, so why can't we do it? But they really stick to their principles, and I really like that. They're really looking after the player, and they are the site for the player, I think, rather than looking after themselves. And I genuinely do believe that.
Absolutely, I agree. let's a question. What did you want to become as a child? What did you see yourself growing up as, and what would you be doing if you weren't playing poker? Do you believe right now? Let's just say you pads poker doesn't exist, or you COVID. I don't know. You can't play poker live or online. What would you be doing?
So I believe that I would have been in sport in football. I don't think I would have been a professional footballer. I think poker definitely made me a worse footballer because on weekends I was up late. Like in England, you play your matches like 11 a.m. on a Saturday, but I was playing poker till 6 a.m. on a Friday. So I would play a lot of matches with like 2 hours sleep, 3 hours sleep, which you just can't do. So I believe I would have been in football. I don't think I would have been a professional footballer. I don't think I would have played at a high standard. And I think I would have ended up dropping into being a manager or a coach at an earlier age than most people. So like most people like stop playing football at 35 and start coaching then. I believe I would have stopped playing football at like 25 when I realized that I was capped and I couldn't get to the next level. I believe I would have made my way up the leagues and to a certain point where I couldn't grow anymore as a player. Then I would have left playing and went into management. So yeah, I would have been trying because when I see these like German managers who are like 28 managing in the top league, I'm like, wow, that's like super cool, you know. And
That is fun. That is cool. It seems like that would be a good fit and possibility. I want to talk about your prop bets, what you are doing with that, but first, I want to ask you because I think listen, I'm 33, married. I have a 15-month-old son. If I didn't, I think I would. I think I would probably have to just come over to the UK, join you on this mission you got coming up, and hop into BitB program and just dive in and be a manager. Try to start. It sounds like you're building a franchise. What is going on? What are you doing? I saw your Instagram story. You're buying a team in some lower division. Is that the goal? Are you gonna buy a team, bring them up to the Premiership, and that's sort of your ideal? What is this all about? You got going on?
So if we go back to earlier in the podcast when I said I had my friends that I played poker with when I was like 15, 16. When we were 15, we had our own like five-a-side football team, and we were called Goat FC. And this was before anyone spoke about like greatest of all time. We were just like we randomly had this goat as our mascot. You know, like a lot of sports teams have like an animal as their as their mascot or what they base their club around. You know, you see lots of like bears or like lions, right, whatever it may be. So we were goat. This was before like LeBron James and greatest of all time and stuff like this. So we had this football team when we were 15, and we played just five-a-side games against other teams. Then when I left at 18 out of Newcastle, my friends kind of took the team to the next level of like playing Sunday league against like pub teams, and then they took up levels and levels and levels until where it is today, which is like 9 leagues below the Premier League. So like we were probably like 40 leagues away from the Premier League, and now they're like 9 leagues below the Premier League, which is still like a really quite low standard. I'm moving back to Newcastle, and I was like, well, I can take a team who are like 7 leagues below Man United and try to get there, or even 6 leagues below Man United and try to get there. But for me, going back to my roots, there's like a story, you know. It's like the team who I made when I was 15, and now I'm coming home to kind of like continue the journey which my friends took on themselves. You know, I'd rather do it with my friends, and I can trust my friends, and I believe in their vision and stuff like this. So yeah, we're going to do that. All the teams now. Sorry, go on.
Is there investment opportunity in there, or is that a what types of things do you think could catalyst to make it successful to expedite? Like, is it a funding thing? Is it a talent, getting people to buy in? Like, how do you build? Where do you start on that process to build it up?
So basically, I'm a huge fan of football on YouTube. So I watch almost every team who is competitive and uploads their games on YouTube. And you have the Premier League, and then you have the second league, the Championship. And these teams, how many views do you think? How many views would you say that these teams get per video? Like let's say the second tier. So you have like Man United, then you have like the second tier. Like how many views would you think these kind of teams get on their videos?
I have no idea. Like in which the bottom tier or in the
like the second tier. So like teams like Fulham and like teams where you have like 40,000 people going to watch every week still.
I would think a ton would watch these videos. I would think, especially even at that level, because they're in and out. Like Fulham is in and out of the Premiership, right? I mean, so yeah, exactly. Teams in that top tier Premiership. I have no idea to guess because I don't really know like what the Premiership ones get, but a lot. Like I would think it would be surprisingly high.
So they get like less than 5,000 views per video, which is like really low. So and if you take like tier 4, which is still like professional, like very famous teams who've been around 100 years, these teams get like 300 views, 400 views a video. The engagement like for YouTube, which I really believe in, is very, very low. However, the YouTube teams who are in like tier 11, so like, you know, boom, 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 all the way down, not even close to being semi-professional, some of these teams are getting 200,000 views every game. You know, so like this is huge viewership. Um, you can basically get like sponsorship and advertisement per video rather than just having like a sponsor on your shirt. You know, so like a lot of the teams in our league, they have sponsors on their shirt who pay for the, you know, the training and pay for the club essentially. But the let's say you have a sponsor called like McDonald's, just for example, you're only going to get like 200 people seeing McDonald's, the people you play against every week, you know. But if you have 30 YouTube videos where you have 200,000 people watching every single video, then now commercial wise and advertising wise and sponsorship wise, you start becoming like a just as attractive as, let's say, Fulham, you know, because sure, Fulham may have 40,000 people who go to watch them, or 30,000 or 20,000, but online they get 5,000. So like, there's not that many people watching them. Whereas a team in tier 9 or 10 or 11, they can have 100,000 people watching all the time. So in terms of acquiring players, would you rather be in tier 7 with 25 people watching you or 50 people watching you, or tier 9 with 20,000 people watching you? You know, like let's say you an ex-professional 20-year-old kid, you could be in tier 6 with like 1,000 people watching you on a terrible pitch, or you could be in tier 10 with maybe 200,000 people watching you. You know, like you can attract people in different ways, and your competition that are against you in the league, they're capped in how much money and investment they can bring in, because their business model is we turn up every week, we wear a shirt, we have a sponsor on the shirt, and that's it. My business model is going to be that we have a YouTube channel, and we're basically, the company's a media company, and the football team is, they're not actors, but they're like the main part of the media team that we kind of push out each week, you know. And we start, you know, making players like fan favorites. We start making like mini celebrities and mini influencers out of our players, you know. And I believe that if in Newcastle, where I'm from, it's like such a famous city for football. Like Alan Shearer, Newcastle was such a big team in the Premier League. Like even now, like we're a lot of people's like second favorite team. There's 10 YouTube teams in London who have like 100,000 views per video, but they're all in London because London is where advertising is. London is where kind of like media people are and stuff like this. But in the north of England is actually where people prefer playing football and watching football, you know? So I'm basically taking the business model from London and taking it to an area where I think it can be more popular.
Pads, I'm in. I'm gonna check with the wife if I have the invite. You know my background. I played through college. Maybe I pack up shop, move over there. We take over the world, man. It's exciting. Honestly, it gets me a little bit of goosebumps because it does seem like it's similar to like Bitcoin in my mind and point of entry, but the risk reward, right? What's the upside versus downside? And similar to poker, getting in at an early age, or what it's not like if you take a team, if you buy a team in the Premiership, there's a lot of downside. Imagine right now. I had a buddy who was, it's a long story, but there was a big deal going down with Roma. They were going to buy Roma, the football club, and COVID happened, and now the numbers are all messed up. And imagine owning or buying a team last year or something, and now you're just, it's massive downside, right? There's like a thing. You take a team from basically in the farmland with no, you're basically, the upside is insane. Imagine you get to the Premiership or the league below even, or something, you build it up, you could really do something. And it gives me goosebumps thinking about how exciting that is. So I love where you have time. Where do you have time? How do you run BitB? How do you win all the money in poker? How do you study and watch YouTube of all these different clubs? And where do you, like, would you sleep? Do you have the formula to not sleep? Well, how many hours a night do you sleep?
I sleep like 8 hours every night, but I think I'm just efficient with my time typically. Like I really love football and like the tactics behind football. So like right now, the manager for the team, he manages the team. He watches from the sideline and then he coaches midweek. We've bought like cameras where we're going to video the games for YouTube, and it's the same cameras that like Man City use and Burnley use and all Wolves use, the top team. So after the game, I'm going to be able to give him a video, 90 minutes, really good footage of the game. He can then watch it back, rewind, pause, see how the defense. He may not have seen how the defense was doing something because he was watching the attackers. So like, it's gonna help his coaching to the team get to the next level too. Because he's gonna have this footage of the team where usually the game finishes and all you have is your memory. Now we can watch the game back. We can even give the game to the players. Because when you're playing in the middle of the pitch, it's hard to see around you and like realize how big the pitch is or realize how your body shape was or whatever. If you can now watch yourself back and see the mistakes you made or how you could have done things different, the players, we feel like, are going to also just improve dramatically too. Whereas our opposition, they turn up, they play, and 2 weeks later, let's say 3 months later, they have no recollection of this game. Whereas I can give this video to the guy, can watch back and see how he's developed from January to April. So like, what I want to sell in the video is basically not just the entertainment side, like the fights and the documentation of the team talks, but I also want to sell about like the improvement that players can make via analysis, kind of the same way how I do in poker. So I want to like really tackle it from this kind of strategical, technical point of view of how can we exploit this, how can we improve this part, how can we improve that part, and putting this out every week as a story and journey. I hope to have fans who, if we get 200 fans in the first video, that's fine, because over 6 years, 7 years, if we keep improving, hopefully that fan base will be almost addicted to the storyline, just as how I'm addicted to the storylines of these other YouTube teams. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it being.
Yeah, I it's super, super powerful, and I'm excited, man. Honestly, I think that's like a dream passion project. How much of that had to do with you hitting this $1 million plus score, crushing everything, and is this sort of like, all right, I'm gonna relax and do a passion project, or is this something you were gonna do always? Like, how did you wake up and have this idea?
Well, I've always been thinking about doing it. I've been living in different places. So I usually live in a place for 3 years. So I lived in Spain for 3 years, then I lived in Budapest for 3 years, and now I've lived in London for 3 years. So I was always planning to leave London this year. But because of online poker, there's only so many places you can live and play poker. So I can't move back to Spain. I can't go to Italy. I can't go to France. I can't go to New York. I can't go to Australia. Lots of places I'd love to live in as a human being. I can't live. And one of the places I haven't lived in my adult life is my hometown, Newcastle. So I want to move back and experience my hometown as an adult, because I loved it as a kid. Like I genuinely loved living in my hometown as a kid, but I have not experienced living as an adult in Newcastle. So I'm planning on going back for 3 years. And I was saying, well, what can I do as a project alongside this to enjoy the city even more? And yeah, football and is my passion, even more so than poker. So it made sense to do this alongside, essentially.
It's also, the last thing I'll point out, I know you got to go because we have so many questions. We're not even getting to really any, so I apologize to people out there. Maybe you can take a look and answer some on Twitter, reply to a few later at some point. But I will say, what's that?
We can do 10 more minutes. It's fine.
Oh, great. All right, good. I'm not quitting you, so you gotta tell me when to go. I would say it's very rare because nowadays so much history, so many clubs. Like look at the NFL, look at the Major League Baseball, look at the Premiership, look at the Bundesliga. These clubs have so much history, but someone started somewhere, right? The clubs started. There was a vision. There was someone that said, I'm going to start a club, big city. Okay, it's easier. You start, maybe get some money. Maybe now you're a very wealthy person, buys a club for 500 million or 200 million or $1 billion. But to actually start in modern day era, to like build a franchise or a club from scratch, do you know any stories like this in the last decade or 20, 30 years that a club has really been built from, literally nothing and come into, like, is there any club like that that's
No, not from this level. A lot of clubs get bought in like tier 4 for like 10 million or 1 million or 3 million, but nothing from this level. But then again, YouTube is quite new. Like maybe there's teams who will be there in say 5-6 years who are already on that journey. Like #United are a very big club in London or Essex, and they're doing the same strategy, and they've been going for like 5 years before us. But yeah, there's also going to be a competition between different media teams as well, YouTube teams. Like there's a lot of competition and who is the best team, and there's a lot of matches and stuff going on there. Like yeah, it's there's nothing been done yet like this, but it doesn't mean that there won't be multiple who do this. And yeah, and it all started when I was 15. It's the same team. The journey's just been slow. It's been good, a good slow journey to where we are now. And then now I'm, helping take back over with the guys. It's not like I'm taking over. They have a committee and they have a manager and they have a a treasurer, and they have a secretary, all this kind of stuff. I'm just coming back in and helping all their jobs be a little bit easier.
So what will be your official position within this organization?
I'll be funding it, I guess, making things a bit easier financially, and I'll be involved a little bit everywhere. So like I won't be the manager, but I'll be working with the manager, like about like helping him with like the footage. In terms of the media, like I won't be doing the recording or the editing, but I'll be involved in the vision of how I want it to be. I'm a little bit of a control freak. It's like with BitB, I've always been involved in like everything. Like I've never missed a meeting, or I've always been involved in every single thing, whether it be social media, marketing, whether it be game selection, whether it be strategy, whether it be content, whether it be website. Like I've always been involved in every single bit. So I'm not a big fan of delegating. I like to be, I like people to do things, but I like to do it with them. It's like they have like responsibility, but I give them like a vision and give them support, I guess. So I will try to do a similar thing, I think.
I can see it now, 2025, the league below, battling in a playoff spot to get in the Premiership. You're the manager, and you got this story. We could say we heard it first, even though I did see you on Instagram and alluding and talking about it. But very cool. Like I said, I mean, listen, a different lifetime. I would love to be involved in some way, because I think it's an amazing project, and I love soccer and I love all this. Like kind of, it's like you're like playing build your. What's that game used to be popular? It's like club manager, like you build your own team on remember that?
Did you Football Manager?
What was it called?
Football Manager.
Yeah. Like
I mean, it's a huge game now. I still play it. Like I play it a lot myself. It's huge. It's huge. Like in England especially, it's a huge game.
That's sort of what you're doing. You're playing like a real life football manager.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people describe it as. Yeah, exactly.
That's very, very cool. What degree did you study at university, and has it helped you in any way?
I was a journalist, so I did journalism at university, and then it's helped me in terms of, I do a lot of blogs and a lot of writing and stuff like that. So it helps me in that way, but often you don't really realize the stuff that you've learned. Like it's probably taught me stuff which I just don't consciously realize it's taught me. So like I believe anything you've done in the past has always helped you get to the next step. So like studying when I was 15 years old, 14 years old, it was done for a reason. It was to get to the next step, and it taught me stuff now which I don't remember it taught me. But like your whole identity and DNA is built up of subconscious things that you don't realize that you've learned. So yeah, I'm sure it has helped me in ways, but nothing which I can really consciously say that writing has helped me in this way or the other. Maybe in like politics and like worldview, we have to do a lot of research on like journalism's a lot about like world affairs and stuff. So it helped me grow up a little bit and see the world a bit bigger, I think.
What was your aha moment? Being asked here, like, did you ever have a moment that in poker it clicked? Like, I think so many people make the mistake on thinking about their running bad when they lose a busted tournament, because a lot, like even people that I would be surprised, not just recreationals, but sort of regs or people I talk, they're like, oh, I run so bad, I bust ace king to queens or ace king to ace queen with they get down to 12-10 blinds and they bust a tournament and they're like thinking they're running bad, but really the game's won and lost in the trenches. You win the war winning those small blind, big blind, jamming in a spot where you have 20 bigs in the cutoff, and you could finding these creative ways or ways that obviously the best players in the world are doing stuff. They're finding ways to win pots. They're doing other things that others aren't. So when did something click for you where you sort of whether it was a moment like that and a realization in poker, or just something about life that was like very powerful? Do you have any moment in your poker journey that stands out as like an epiphany on how you approach the game, or anything that turned you from being maybe good to great?
Yeah, I had two things, I think. I mean, I think the first one was that I realized that people really like to fold in big spots. In cash games especially, people like to find a reason to fold. So when this was in like 2013, 14, 15 years, like for like 3 years or so, people would love to fold. And if you put enough pressure on them, they would only generally call with a certain hand class. So basically my whole strategy was, if they can fold aces, if I can make them fold aces, I will bluff every hand in my range. So I would overbluff massively, trying to make people fold basically their entire range. So basically, I think that in most spots, people would have folded aces, you know, with 100 big blinds deep, and obviously it depends on the exact spot. If the board is ace XX, they're not folding aces, obviously. But if I believe it's unlikely they have a hand like a two, like let's say the board is 10-7, 5-3-2. If it's unlikely they have 5-2 and 10-3 and all these kind of hands, it's more likely they have jacks, queens, kings, or aces. I would basically just, I would bluff even if I have, say, jack 10 myself, right? So if I have a hand with loads of showdown value, I would go all out making them fold everything essentially. I would never take my showdown value. I would bluff my entire range to make people fold their entire ranges. And that was a big thing for like 3 years. I made a lot of money just stealing pots, which I probably shouldn't have stolen. But then it changed around. I had a very, very, very aggressive image for a long time. And I had to go kind of the other way around and kind of be more greedy and not bluff so much. The second thing was about extra lives. So I realized that if you have 10 big blinds and I have 10 big blinds and we flip and I lose a flip, I can't do anything about that. But if I can have 12 big blinds when you have 10 big blinds, then when I lose the flip, I can spin up these 2 big blinds. So like every big blind is an extra life. So every pot you play, if you play it better than the other person, you build up these extra lives like a game show. And then when you do these flips, which are inevitable, you have these like extra tokens you can just cash in and be like, oh, well, I have 5 big blinds left, you know? Like imagine you played a tournament where if you lose a flip, you get like an extra 5 big blinds and you get like 4 of these. That would be, you know, you'd always use your 5 big blinds, and people would win tournaments from these extra 5 big blind chips. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna work hard to gain these extra lives so that if I flip against player 1, 2, 3, 4, in this spot I will have more big blinds left in general than he will have left because I would have really gained these extra lives. So I can't, you know, I can't win ace king against jacks every time, but I can have these extra lives if I put the effort in, kind of thing. And I would win tournaments from having 2 big blinds, and people would be like, wow, such a luck box. You went from having 2 big blinds to winning. I'd be like, yeah, okay, you can think it's luck, but I'm gonna think it's skill. Do you know what I mean? Or like approaching it like that was like the biggest thing. I think it meant that I was more focused in sessions. It meant my mental game was stronger. I never punted off a tournament. I never like was blasé, you know, I just really went for every single pot, kind of thing. I think European was the one who really taught me this. He fights so hard and he's such like a hard player to play against.
For sure. What is your favorite poker moment?
Favorite poker moment would have been, I mean, it'll sound like bollocks, but my favorite poker moment has been success of players I've staked getting out of makeup and winning money for themselves. So like someone winning the Sunday Million, or someone winning a championship, or like reeling someone on a live final table who's part of the community. Like I get way more satisfaction out of that than I do out of myself winning. I think it's because when you win yourself, it's very exhausting. If you've played for 12 hours and you have these ups and downs, afterwards it's almost like a relief. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is great. It's like, fuck, that's over, I've won, you know? But if someone else wins, you kind of like watch them with a beer or watch them with a packet of Maltesers or whatever, and you're like really enjoying the experience of their experience. When you win yourself, it's like a stressful situation almost. It's hard to enjoy your own wins a lot of the time. But yeah, I really like watching European and Elmericks winning, because I'm usually watching with a beer and like maybe writing to them on Discord and like having fun or whatever, you know? So like that's what I really, really enjoy from poker.
What do you think about Twitch and poker and YouTube like content and stuff? What's your thoughts on that for poker right now?
I'm not sure if you know like my history with Twitch and poker, but basically 2014, 15, 2014, I used to Twitch once a week on poker on Twitch every Wednesday. I used to have like 1.5k followers or viewers every week. It was via pokerstrategy.com where I worked for. They had like 8 million members. So like we started, instead of having the sessions on Poker Strategy, we moved them to Twitch, or like we moved my weekly coaching to Twitch. And I was building up a really good fan base here, or like a really good followership, and people would come every week. And then we got a message from Twitch saying we're going to end poker because it's gambling and you're not allowed to do this anymore. So this was very gutting. Then I think it was like 2 months later, Twitch Poker was launched and it exploded, and people started getting followers like Jason Somerville, all this kind of stuff. So I have this very bitter feeling with Twitch that they kind of fucked me off when I would have been, not because I was the best Twitcher or because I was the best player, but I would have been at the top of the Twitch at the time just because I'd I was the first one in on Twitch,
First
if that
one,
makes
yeah.
sense. So like, so yeah, I think I would have had it. But then again, like maybe other things in my career would have changed because of
Right.
that anyway. So yeah, I mean, Twitch is cool, but I don't see myself going back now because of what happened, So yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's so you were the perfect place at the perfect time, but then almost like too early by a minute, and then it
Yeah.
was that's strange, and that's
I'll try to find a video of you. I'll try to find a video of me twitching in 2014 and send it to you. Yeah.
so Poker Strategy, do they still have a Twitch? Do you work with them still?
No, I stopped working for them in 2016. I worked there in Spain in their head office. I was doing the education, so like I hired Jungleman, hired all these kind of people. Like if Jungleman made a video, I would like watch the video and make sure it was good enough in terms of like quality of audio rather than strategy, but also looking at the strategy too. And then we sold the company, or they sold the company for like 50, 60 million to iPoker. And
Poker Strategy sold that?
yeah, we would. I mean, we were the most profitable poker company in the world at the time. We had 8 million members. It was huge. Like Philip Grusum, Igor Kurganov, all these people, they were all given $50 from Poker Strategy, and Poker Strategy give them free content from like coaches like myself and whoever else. And then they tried to turn that $50 into say 1,000. And when they raked, Poker Strategy were given money off the sites. So like Igor Kurganov, Grusum, Oleh Shemion, all these people, they all came because Poker Strategy gave them $50 for free when they were 18, and then coached them how to get to like a beginner's level. Yeah, Tobias Reichenmeyer, Piers Hines, all these people, and if you think if you always hear about the Germans about being so successful, this is all because of Poker Strategy. So yeah, it was a huge site, and yeah, after Black Friday, we sold the site to iPoker, and then I left the site and became a full-time poker player then.
Wow.
So yeah.
Look at that.
Anyway, I have a tennis match, so I'm gonna have to go, unfortunately. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
time.
like I said, I appreciate it very much. We'll have to, do another thing one day, another podcast that we covered a lot. I just want to real quick, just have you pick the winner. So let me just copy this link. Anyone who's followed the instructions is eligible. Just tell me. I know you got a jam here, so just tell me when, count it down, and then I'll let you ride off, and good luck in your match. So tell me when someone's going to win a $109 Party Poker ticket.
So what do? I say when?
Yeah. Can you see my screen or no?
Yeah, I see. Yeah. It just says pick winner from retweets. Type of paste the URL.
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
All right. It's loading. Someone's gonna get the 109 ticket courtesy of Pads and Party Poker. It's taking its time, and there it is. We'll message him. Pads, we'll let you run. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the time. Good luck in the WPT. I'll see you on the streets, and I'll be sending my BitB application soon. So give it a wink for me. Push it through. All right.
Nice one. Thanks, bro.
All right, man. Patrick Leonard, everyone, give him a follow. Instagram, you can see him across the board. He's very active on the social fronts. And again, you can see, we're going to message there on Twitter. The schedule for Party Poker, 100 million guaranteed. I will be playing on Twitch later today, JeffGirlsPoker.tv. Pads will be playing. You can watch him in the client. And we are literally very, very lucky to have him. He is definitely one of the best, if not the best online poker player in the world, currently ranked number 2. He's been as high as number 1 and puts in a lot of work, a lot of volume. Trusted member of Team Party Poker. You can see here one of the ambassadors of the game. He does so much for the site. I mean, it's absolutely crazy to think what he's done, what he's accomplished, how hardworking he is. Got so much positive things to say. Thanks for all the questions. He will go through and answer some. He said, he's going to take a look. We couldn't get to all of them. I see a lot of questions. You guys were all eligible if you followed the instructions. And that is going to end it for this. I've got a special guest next week. We got Puya, the rapper, songwriter, musician, on Bill Perkins' book, Die With Zero, is out on July 28th. We're going to have him on the podcast coming up here as well. And all in all, guys, this was a treat. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Much love. And podcast, I believe, number 78 in the books. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you.